One of the first playlists that I really remember building that I was really proud of was this playlist called Compound Meter is Best Meter, and I literally threw in songs that all used compound meter in it, and that's basically waltz meter, because I always had this joke with my friends saying that every time a song was in waltz meter I always liked it. So no matter what genre it was, no matter who wrote it, I just threw it in there just because it qualified, and that actually kind of triggered a way of thinking of looking at music and grouping them all together with the same music theory concept. So that's kind of what inspired my show in the first place. My name's Ethan Lee. I go by DJ Leegato on UCLA Radio. And my show is titled Musicology, and each week I analyze music theory on my show. My show's my baby. What I thought was really fascinating about Rai in general as an artist is the fact that Rai has a very androgynous voice in my opinion. I started getting into music really late, when I was around in middle school, when I was 12. Before that, I was just kind of passively listening to music, and then it kind of changed when I became a fan of the Beatles first in middle school. And that's really how I started getting really passionate about music, because the Beatles helped me look at music in a way where it's how I look at music today, which is literally breaking it down into different parts and trying to understand why it made me feel in this particular way. And that's when I started actively listening to music, and that's sort of where it all rooted when I was 12 years old.
D major 7, B minor 7.
How I define whether I like a song is usually if it gives me chills that run down my spine, which is something that George Martin once said about the Beatles.
What I thought was really interesting about Rai's song For You was the fact that it uses 7th chords. And what's really interesting about 7th chords is, as I told you already, you could play a regular E minor right here, but if you add a 7 on top of it.
If there's something in a song that I usually I'm not used to hearing a lot, then I'll look at that first and I'll see okay, what are they doing here? And I'll figure out what chords they're using, or I'll figure out what beat they're using. But if there had to be an order, I usually try to listen for something that's interesting in the rhythm first, because that kind of forms the skeleton of the song. Then I kind of see what chords they use and what kind of melody they put on top of those chords. That's really it. And from there, I just try to see if there's anything that I can generalize from music theory, or if I could see something that they do something that's uncommon, and I could point out why it's uncommon in music theory.
All these artists that I've been playing for you today, which is kind of tying in with the theme of con affetto, which means with tender emotion, and this whole idea of castrato.
And I love my show because I'm able to use a platform to be able to speak to everyone, and when it comes down to it, it's usually because it's doing something that I don't often hear, or something that I can always go to and kind of get the feeling that I get from it, and I can't get it from anywhere else.
And that's what musicology is all about. It's about breaking down the music theory of music and kind of figuring out why it makes us feel in certain ways. Now, we're going to continue on because we're kind of getting into the tail end of our show here. But let's continue on with some more androgynous voices. And now, when I think of androgynous voices, I think of Rai. I also think of the artist Shamir.